Well, whether it's good news or bad news for you, summer is winding down. If you went back to school this week, you know that it's coming or it happened. And if it's coming for you this week, it's okay. We're going to help you prepare because our goal as a church is to be sure that this is for you the best year yet. And I know there's so much that goes into making sure that the school year is great. There are preparations that we make and things that we're involved in. Some of them are things like these. You go back to school shopping, maybe. You get some new clothes, a new pair of shoes, maybe. And perhaps you need to go get the school supplies off the school supply list. And you walk the hallways of your classroom or of your school to make sure you end up in the right classroom, right? I mean, the wrong classroom is not the best place to be on the first day of school. Maybe it's logging into PowerSchool and finding out who your teacher is for the coming year. There are so many things that we do to make sure that our school year is going to be successful. And all of these are necessary and all of them are important, but none of them guarantee you will have the best year yet. In order to figure out what the best year yet requires, it's going to mean that we step all the way back to elementary school art. We're going to think about color theory for a moment. Have you ever noticed that when you combine two colors, it makes something new? That's the premise of today's message. Today, we're going to combine two colors. We're going to combine yellow, which is the color that represents the light of the church brought to us in the person of Jesus Christ. And we're going to look at the color red, which is representing the heart of the family. Combining those two together will tell us where we're going. Yellow plus red equals orange. And today's message is going to be brought to you in three parts: yellow, red, and orange. As you just saw, my name is Ryan. I'm one of the pastors here. And today, I am just beginning the message. Coming along after me will be Micah Schuhart as he talks about red, the heart of the family, and Haley Schuhart as she talks about orange, the way that the church and the family partner together. Because we believe that two combined influences can make a greater difference than just two influences. When you put two things together, the potential for impact is even higher than allowing them to just coexist separately. And so we want to think about what it looks like to be a place where the church and the family partner together to help make the best year yet. So I'm going to begin with yellow. Yellow is the light of Christ. And this is not an accident, and it's not just kind of pulled out of nowhere. There's a reason that we're talking about the light of Christ, and that's because it's one of the things that Jesus tells us he is. Throughout the pages of the New Testament, Jesus says 7 times, "I am," and follows it with a statement about who he is. Maya Angelou says something like, if people show you who they are, believe them the first time. This is a moment where we hear what Jesus is saying about who he is. And so maybe we should take it to heart. Maybe we should live it out. Maybe we should believe it. And so the 6 others that we're not talking about today, super important. You should know those. You should read those. You should study those. But today, we're talking about this one thing that we hear Jesus say. And it happens in John chapter 8. This is verse 12. Jesus speaks to the people and said, "I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you won't have to walk in darkness because you have the light that leads to life." Jesus sets up a juxtaposition between light and darkness. To know Jesus is to know light. You know, as people, we're made to be people of light, right? We're made to be people who experience the light of Christ in all kinds of ways. You learn from an early age that darkness can be scary, darkness can be lonely, darkness can lead to the unknown. In fact, darkness has negative physical effects on your body if you experience only darkness. It causes negative physical effects and negative emotional effects on your life. You are a person who is made to experience light. Have you ever noticed that you feel better when the sun is out? There's a reason for this, because we're made to experience light. The power of light is so immense. Well, this is how Francis of Assisi, a 13th century monk, said it. All the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of a single candle. Light is overwhelming. Light helps us see what can be and what is. Have you ever lost something? If you lose something, the first thing you do is try to make it brighter so you can find the thing you lost, right? We went through this time in our family where every time we went to the movies, we lost something, and it was the same thing every time. It was one of our children, who shall remain nameless, put his AirPods in his pocket, and somehow they fell out during the movie every single time. So you sit down and you watch the movie, and the movie's fine. And by the movie's fine, I mean the popcorn was good, and there was something on the screen, right? So all that happens. And you get up to leave, and it's like, oh no, where are my AirPods? And I'm thankful we figured that out before we left the theater. Okay, so I was trying to be grateful in the moment. But to find the AirPods, what do? You turn on the flashlight, and you start crawling underneath the seats at B&B Theater. Do not recommend. However, with the light assisting, we, every time, by the grace of God, found the lost AirPods. Now, there comes a time in life that you need not only light, but you also need quiet to find what you're looking for, right? You're driving down the road, and you got to turn down the radio so you can see better. You know this is true. I'm not the only one. But at the very minimum, you need light. Light changes the way that we see. Light helps us see what is and what can be. The light of Jesus is a sign of safety and security. And for so many, the very first glimpse of light that you will see is brought to you in your family, those people who love you the most. What's the only thing that's better than the light of Christ demonstrated in the church? Maybe it's the love of Christ amplified within a family that loves you. When the light of Christ is combined with the heart of the home, its influence continues to spread.
I was 14 years old, sitting by the bonfire on my parents' property in southern Indiana, when I realized the greatest gift my parents ever gave me. I don't know about you all, but oftentimes my parents and I didn't see eye to eye, and as a 14-year-old boy, I definitely knew way better than they did. Am I right? No, exactly. But now, as a parent myself, I've got 3 young boys, I realize just how hard parenting really is. And not only that, parenting is hard, but also doing something meaningful and raising the next generation and making an impact in the people and the men that my boys are becoming, the weight is immense. And so I wondered on this night, as I was kind of thinking about how I was living and the way my parents had shaped the way we lived with one another, I saw this importance on 2 things: love and community. My house was a place where people gathered. The youth group was always there. People were always hanging out. People knew there would always be warm food. There'd be chili with noodles in it, that on another time. But there was always an opportunity to be loved and cared for at my house. And I was never really quite sure that that was the thing. Amongst all of the ups and the downs of being a parent, my parents always got that right. I think it's moments like these of love and care and kindness. That's what makes red the heart of the home. It was that night that I sat there with my small group that I realized what my parents were doing. That maybe they weren't crazy, that maybe they were actually getting something right. And it was this: they didn't want to minimize what Jesus maximized, and that was love. Amongst every other thing, my parents were choosing love. You see, I never questioned whether my parents loved me. I never questioned whether they loved the church. I never even questioned whether they loved the community that we were put in. And it began to kind of dawn on me this moment that despite all of the other things, love shined through. And actually, Jesus talks about this quite a bit. But in one particular place, in Matthew, Jesus says, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind." This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important: love your neighbor as yourself. It's like Jesus is saying, if you're not going to miss anything, if you're going to get one thing right, please get this right. And so today, parents, grandparents, educators, I just want to ask you, how are you doing? How are you doing with Jesus' greatest commandment? Are you showing those who look up to you what it means to love? How well are you loving God, yourself, and others? Because I believe the love of the home starts here. That those who are watching us, those who are looking up to us, the future of their faith depends on how well we do these three things. So the first is this: how well are you loving God? How well are you loving God? My parents didn't always tell me the things that I should be doing and how I should be loving God, but I never questioned that they did. I saw that my parents had a genuine faith. I saw the relationship that they had, and it became part of me that I wanted to emulate that as well. And so seriously, today, I want you to evaluate. I want you to think. When it comes to the people, the young people in your life, when they look at you, do they see someone who is loving and following Jesus? Are you hitting home runs? Are you throwing behind the back passes like Patrick Mahomes? Are you hitting it out of the park, essentially? Or does your faith just need a little bit of maintenance? Does it need a little bit of work? Or maybe today you're here and you're like, I'm not sure about this whole faith thing. I'm just here today. It's my first time. First of all, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. But this is a room full of people that are marked by Jesus. A room full of people that Jesus has done some work in our life, and we believe in him, and we are not perfect, we are broken, but we are here because we want to love Jesus, and Jesus makes our lives that much better. And so I ask you, could you begin to think about maybe what would it look like to say yes to Jesus today? The second thing is this: how well are you loving yourself? How well are you loving yourself? I don't know how many of you have struggled with anxiety or depression or difficult things in your different seasons of life, but I'm around our students and young people on a regular basis. And I know the hardships that they have, the things they struggle with, and you know it in your own kids' lives as well. So this could be true. What if we were a generation that passed on love? A generation that passed on self-worth? A generation that passed on value? I regularly use this small phrase called COGPOW, and it really just means child of God, person of worth. You'll see it on the screens. Child of God and person of worth. What if it was our opportunity to then share that, to make the next generation believe that they were child of God and a person of worth? I think things would drastically change if that was true, because the reality is we're all a work in Christ. We're all becoming more. We're all being formed into the image of God. And so how well are you loving yourself and then passing that on to the next generation? The third thing is this: how well are you loving others? How well are you loving others? I believe that if we love God, we can love ourselves. The only natural reaction is to then love other people. We have this opportunity to not even just reach into our own kids' lives, but to reach into their friends' lives and the people around them. Are we creating spaces and community for people within our own homes and showing them hospitality? Around our church, we say that we are for our community, and we mean it, for each and every individual, and for each and every person in the next generation. We are for them. We want to be with them. We want to come alongside them. And so for you, how are you doing this? When you look at your people around you, do the people, the next generation, your kids, do they see you loving others? Do they see you caring for other people? Are they going to want to do that one day because they saw you do it first? But when we see all three of these things, when we put them together, really there's one primary point I want you to get today, and it's this: the heart of the home shapes the way the next generation interacts in the world. Like I said, my parents and I had ups and downs and different moments that we came across each other, and we weren't always so kind, but this: I firmly believe that my parents shaped the man that I am today because of the way they love God, because of the way they love themselves, because of the community and the place that they loved other people around us. They shaped who I am because of the way they carried themselves and how they loved first. You see, Ryan shared with us this yellow light of Christ. I share with you the red heart of the home, but when you combine those two, something really special happens, and we call it orange.
wasn't something necessarily that my parents or my family were against, but more simply, it wasn't talked about in our household. It wasn't until elementary school that I was invited to attend church for the very first time. She bribed me by telling me that if I went with her, I would get to see some friends from school, we would have fun playing games, and then lastly, the thing that got me there was the free food. And so in this moment, my faith was non-existent. I began attending church and kind of going for the reasons that I mentioned before, but in middle school, my faith began to mean something different to me. I got baptized and I began serving, and then in high school I was invited to be a part of a kids ministry internship that would forever change the trajectory of my life. As I began learning and growing more in my faith, that's where my passion for the next generation really took off. It was the red that I was excited to invest in as I became a parent, but it was the light of the church, as Ryan talked about, that got me there to begin with. My passion of getting to see kids learn and grow in their faith just as I did as a child was instilled here. And when we look at the numbers of how much time the church has, the yellow, in comparison to how much time our families, the red, have to invest in the next generation, we quickly see that we should be teaming up on this. On average, a ministry leader or volunteer has 40 hours in a given year to impact a kid or teenager. And if you're anything like me, you see a number and you want to kind of figure out how you got there. So let me do that quick. If you go to church once a month, that's 12 hours in a year our ministry team has to influence the faith of your kid. If you guys go twice a month, that's 24 hours, and 3 times is 36. So let's just say maybe even 40 hours is a little bit generous when we think about the sick days or the vacation times or the soccer games or all of those things that consume our schedule. Meanwhile, in a year, parents have roughly 3,000 waking hours for you guys to invest in your kids. And of course, there's school happening next week, believe it or not. That's going to take quite a bit of that time. And the practices and those things are still existing, but I hope it allows you to see the drastic difference between the two. So what does working together look like? What does it look like for the light of the church and the heart of the home to come together to create something incredible? That means we, one, want to encourage our kids and our students to show up to ministry-minded programming. I don't know about you, but the reality of us growing up in all different churches and denominations is there. And so I want to take just a second to paint a picture for you of what it looks like to attend our family ministry programming. Something I personally always like to say is, it's everything you guys get to experience in this room, except we have more fun. I'm sorry, Ryan, but I believe it's true that we are having intentional fun down there because that is one of the key ways our kids and our students are learning. And so, as we take time to think and create ways that we present the gospel in a way that engages and excites our kids to learn and to grow in their faith. We're constantly finding ways to keep kids interested through worship or teaching or activities. It's why we plan the way that we plan our events, and it's why we play the crazy games that we play. And it's because we're doing it on purpose for them to learn. So will kids gain something by attending worship in this space? I believe they will, and that's because we have amazing worship and speakers that are in this place, but I would be lying to you to tell you that I didn't think that just down the hall or Wednesday nights at the gathering that they would be gaining something different, something more intentional, because we are curating that service specifically for their age group. It's why we change the things that we change constantly, because I don't know about you, but sometimes my kids change. If you don't know, I'm a mom of 3 boys, so I like to say it's basically wrestling mania at our house all the time. Here's a photo of what they look like from our latest trip to Branson. They have Cooper in the back behind the bear, Jack is on my left, and then right is Owen. They'll all be going to school this year. It's going to be a new adventure. But something with them specifically that I've noticed changes is sometimes when I go to the grocery store and I have our whole list of things that they love, right? Because we buy foods that our kids like. The next time I go, all of a sudden, it's a different list because their dietary changes are happening. Suddenly the foods that they love, they now hate. And while dietary changes are normal and natural and all of those things, on a more serious note, on a more personal note, my kids are changing in different ways too. And it's true, from birth through 18, kids are constantly changing physically, emotionally, relationally, and physically. That's why our team is working diligently to ensure that we are bringing both solid theology as well as human development together. And we have an incredible staff team that allows us to do that. We have people like Micah, who we just heard from, and Cole, who get to serve alongside our students here. We have people like Rachel, who serves as our elementary coordinator. And as well as that, we have extra staff and volunteers who do not have to be here weekly, but are choosing to show up for our kids and our students. Ensuring your family is connected is just one way that you guys can partner alongside of us. Another way is by thinking about what your rhythms are in your family. Ensuring your family is connected to a church community is just one way, but establishing rhythms is the big deal here. And I wanted to say that again, and here's why. Because in Deuteronomy it says this, "And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise." For me, I always thought that these rhythms meant that I needed to read the Bible for my kids for 3 hours every night, and I've quickly learned that that is not, one, always feasible, and two, probably the best approach. But what would it look like if before our kids got out of the school, or before our kids got on the school bus, or before the kids got out of the car to go into school, what if we prayed with them? Or what if we prayed before we went to bed? Or what if it shifted the way we looked at our conversations with our kids throughout the day or the dinner table? What if we asked our kids, "Where did you see God today?" Or "How can I be praying for you?" Let's be honest too, if you don't have a relationship with your kids are not going to hear you. That's something I've had to learn too. They can sniff out when you're not being serious or you're not being relational and meaningful with them. So what are you doing to build that relationship with your kids and your students? The last point is this, and it's we need to be connected to a community. We were created for community. The Bible tells us this, right? So who is in your village? Who are the people that you've put in your life that your kids are unintentionally or intentionally following because that is who's being modeled in front of them? Who are the people you go out to dinner with? Or the people that they hear you talking on the phone to? Are the people that are closest to your family the ones that are being a positive spiritual influence in your life? Who could potentially change the way your kids see and hear from God? We talked about this idea of church being yellow and the red being home, the heart of our home. And together these things create orange, which is our strategy and why I absolutely love getting to do what I do, because I love partnering with people that are spending way more time with their kids than we have the opportunity to do so. So as school approaches this year, what's your strategy? What's going to be different? How are we going to get these new routines set, or how are we going to look at the hours that we have with our kids this year and do something different with them? Whether you're a parent, a grandparent, an educator, our prayer for you is that this information allows your family to have the best year yet.